If you want to know what the 11th century looked like, do not look behind protective glass. Stay here with us. This is original architecture, preserved intact rather than reconstructed. Walking through the alleys of Fez, the environment remains as it was centuries ago, where artisans still work with primitive tools. Under the night sky, the Milky Way illuminates the desert like an ancient celestial map. Morocco doesn't take you back to the past. It lets us live in the past in a breathtakingly authentic way. And nowhere is that raw authenticity more vivid than in the ancient heart of Fez, where the Chouara tannery has persisted for over 1,000 years without adopting a single modern alteration. The very air smells of history. In continuous operation since the 11th century, the site maintains a production process completely untouched by modern industry. Workers stand in giant stone pits filled with a mixture of water, limestone, and pigeon droppings. A key ingredient containing ammonia, an essential element for naturally softening leather. The smell is strong and unmistakable, but it is this raw, chemical-free technique that produces some of the finest handcrafted leather in the world. To withstand the intensity of this scent, visitors are often given a sprig of fresh mint before looking down into the dying pits. While the tanneries exemplify the raw endurance of human labor, the argan tree stands as a testament to the resilience of the land itself. Found only in the semi-deserts of Morocco and a small corner of Algeria, the argan tree is inseparable from this soil. Despite all the efforts of scientists to transplant and propagate it, the tree has not been able to grow anywhere outside its native environment, no matter how many times it has been tried. It thrives only in this harsh environment, producing a fruit whose oil has become known around the world as liquid gold. But its rarity is only half the story. The true value lies in the labor. Berber women hand-crack each nut, grind it by stone, and extract every drop through a process so physical and time-consuming that modern machines still fail to replicate its purity. It is a beauty born from hardship, a product that the world can only enjoy thanks to Morocco's unique soil conditions. While the argan tree is Morocco's silent miracle, The Thuja tree is its rarest luxury. Hidden along the lower slopes of the Atlas Mountains, Thuja wood is unlike anything found elsewhere in the world. Dense, richly patterned, and carrying a natural luster that craftsmen describe as alive. Its grain is so intricate and so uniquely Moroccan that luxury car makers like Rolls-Royce, Mercedes, and BMW have spent decades seeking it out for their highest-end interiors. Because it cannot grow elsewhere, Thuja wood is very rare, not only valuable, but also one of the most geographically protected materials in Morocco. Morocco's mountains and deserts reveal quiet wonders, but it's Jamaa el-Fnaa that takes the country's chaotic pace and makes it come alive. As night falls over Marrakech, the square transforms into a kind of open-air theater, not staged or choreographed, but alive with the same energy it has carried for centuries. Here, traditions that should have disappeared with the Middle Ages continue in full view. Cobra charmers coax snakes with hypnotic flute melodies, not to put them into a trance, but to manipulate their natural instinct to follow movement. The snakes cannot actually hear the music. Instead, they respond to the sway of the flute and the rhythm of the performer's body. It's a practice that dates back centuries, passed from master to apprentice, and it remains one of Jamaa el-Fnaa's most recognizable yet controversial traditions. And on the edge of the square, itinerant dentists lay out piles of extracted teeth as proof of their skill, offering on-the-spot extractions without anesthesia. Their tools are simple, often just metal pliers and a cloth, and their experience comes not from formal training, but from years of practice on the street. People come to them not because it is safer, but because it is fast, cheap, and rooted in an old tradition that existed long before modern clinics. It's loud and chaotic, but it's a scene that feels more like stepping into a living piece of Morocco's past. Alongside the colorful traditions are Moroccan folk legends, primitive fears and beliefs in the afterlife. The most prominent is the name Ait Benhaddou. Across Morocco, belief in jinn is woven into daily life, especially in rural areas where old stories are preserved with remarkable clarity. Ait Benhaddou is described as a seductive woman who lures men to secluded places. But by the time they realize it is too late, her lower body ends with the legs of a goat or a camel. For generations, her name has carried such weight that many Moroccans refuse to say it aloud after dark, fearing that simply calling it might draw her attention. Away from the scary stories, the cultural space here changes completely when the drums and beats are played. This is when Gnawa appears, bringing with it a vibrant energy and the ability to soothe the soul. Emerging from the spiritual heritage of Afro-Moroccan communities, Gnawa is not just music, it is a lineage sustained and passed down through generations. The sound is built on the sharp clang of the krakeb, iron castanets repeating the same rhythm over and over again, becoming a vibrating resonance throughout the space. During the nighttime Lila ceremonies, the repetition deepens. Voices rise and fall over the steady pulse, and participants believe the music can draw them into a trance-like state, one that helps release emotional weight or reconnect with the unseen layers of the world around them. For outsiders, it may look like a performance. For those raised within the tradition, Gnawa is a form of healing that predates modern language to explain it. If a Moroccan confesses his love to you, he will not say, "I love you," but "I have conquered your liver." A difference from the world. Where many cultures elevate the heart as the symbol of love, Morocco gives that meaning to a far more unexpected organ, the liver. In Moroccan belief, a healthy liver is essential to digestion, vitality, and overall well-being, which makes it a fitting metaphor for happiness itself. Over time, the organ became tied to affection, sincerity, and emotional depth. That's why one of the most common expressions of love here isn't about capturing someone's heart. It's about winning their liver. A phrase that carries far more warmth in Morocco than it may suggest anywhere else. Away from folk tales, we are about to enter a landscape that awakens all the senses. Erg Chebbi. A sweeping expanse of burnt orange dunes rising hundreds of feet in shifting shapes. At sunrise, the sand turns soft pink. By sunset, it glows a deep, fiery red, colors that change not with filters or tricks of the eye, but with the angle of the desert light itself. Erg Chebbi is one of Morocco's two major dune systems, an immense expanse shaped entirely by wind, time, and natural geology. The magic of Erg Chebbi really begins when the sun sets. Surrounded by the pristine darkness of an isolated dark sky zone, the space becomes the perfect backdrop for the stars. The Milky Way cuts a cold, brilliant line across the sky, offering a visual experience that few will ever see in their lifetime. As the wind sweeps across the slopes or triggers torrents of sand to slide down cliffs, the simultaneous friction of billions of crystals creates a mysterious acoustic phenomenon. It is a deep, resonant sound, like a giant bass note rolling steadily through the silence of the desert. It is one of nature's rarest acoustic events, and Erg Chebbi is one of the few places on Earth where it still happens. The further inland you go, the narrower the road becomes, winding paths clinging to the cliffs. This is the High Atlas, a land of schist and red soil, where Berber villages perch on the edge of cliffs, existing in an isolated environment that is hard to reach by the modern world. The High Atlas Range forms the spine of Morocco, and at its center stands Jebel Toubkal, the highest peak in North Africa, rising to more than 13,600 feet. In winter, Toubkal is buried under thick snow, turning the surrounding valleys into a landscape that looks unexpectedly alpine. It was this site that broke the stereotype that Africa was all heat and desert. Summer brings a different contrast. Temperatures soar, the cliffs glow in the sun. But between the ridges, lush green valleys appear almost from nowhere. These sustain hundreds of Amazigh mountain villages, where communities have preserved their distinctive mud and stone architecture for centuries. The High Atlas Mountains are also a living record of Morocco's indigenous cultures, the harsh climate and dramatic geography that binds them together. From the dense green valleys of the Rif Mountains emerges one of Morocco's most striking natural formations, God's Bridge. This massive limestone arch was carved over thousands of years as flowing water slowly eroded the bedrock, leaving behind a geological structure that feels almost engineered despite being entirely natural. Towering several stories high, the arch links two moss-covered cliffs, with a clear, cold stream running quietly beneath it. Its scale and symmetry make it one of the most impressive natural arches in North Africa. A short trek deeper into the valley leads to Akour's waterfall, a cascade that drops into a pool of vivid turquoise water. The contrast is tropical hues against the rugged, arid, mountainous terrain. This area feels like a retreat, a surprising beauty hidden within the Rif Mountains, and is one of Morocco's most rewarding nature retreats. Leaving the inland canyons where the currents erode the limestone, we head out to the Atlantic coast to witness a similar but more dramatic tectonic process. At Legzira, huge waves have been crashing against the sandstone cliffs for thousands of years, carving out huge red brick domes that tower above the sand. Legzira Cliff. The sandstone itself is what makes Legzira extraordinary. Under the changing angle of the sun, the sandstone surface reacts to create a series of continuous color changes throughout the day. The rock changes from a bright fiery orange in the morning to a deep crimson at noon, and finally covers itself with a hazy purple layer at sunset. At low angles, the light scattering phenomenon causes the entire cliff to glow, looking like a block of embers glowing on its own. Legzira was once home to 2 arches, but one collapsed in 2016 after decades of natural erosion. The surviving arch is now an outstanding example of coastal geology, illustrating both the durability of sandstone blocks and their vulnerability to natural erosion. Deep in the Atlas Mountains are 2 tectonic plates known as geological twins, both made of the same red sandstone, but each with a completely different morphology and movement. Todra Gorge presents the more dramatic profile of the 2. Its vertical walls rise nearly 1,300 feet, narrowing the passage at certain points to only 30 to 60 feet across. Walking through it feels like moving between 2 immense stone pillars, with a cold stream running along the base and cooling the air even in the height of summer. The contrast between the towering cliffs and the narrow floor creates one of the most striking natural corridors in Morocco. Unlike the vertical structure of the narrow canyons, Dade's Gorge opens up a majestic horizontal space. The characteristic of this place is the winding mountain pass route, cutting across the red rock mountainside, forming a series of dense, stacked switchbacks. This is considered one of the most dangerous mountain roads and possesses the most impressive geometric structure in Morocco. Along the gorge, erosion has sculpted the sandstone into unusual, almost architectural shapes, including the well-known formations known as the monkey fingers. Todra and Dades together portray 2 very different personalities of the Atlas Mountains, one majestic and vertical, the other sinuous and winding. If your vision is accustomed to the hot hues of the desert and red rocks of the south, Morocco's palette undergoes a dramatic change in the Rif Mountains of the north. Nestled between rugged limestone peaks is Chefchaouen, a monochrome architectural maze where thousands of houses, from walls, staircases, doors, alleys, are covered in hundreds of shades of blue, from indigo to cyan. Moving through the city, you quickly realize how completely the color blue defines the environment. Every turn reveals another variation of it. Why blue? Several explanations exist, none confirmed, but all part of the city's identity. One traces back to the 15th century Sephardic Jewish community, who painted their homes blue as a reminder of the sky, spirituality, and a connection to the divine. Others say the color helps repel mosquitoes or keeps buildings cool during the hotter months. Whatever its origins, Chefchaouen's blue palette has become one of Morocco's most distinctive visual hallmarks. Even the small Medina market, which sells a wide variety of textiles and handicrafts, stands out against the city's signature blue backdrop thanks to its rich brocade colors. Amidst a monochrome maze that defies all the rules of color, Chefchaouen positions itself as an exception to North African architecture. It is a place where reality and illusion merge, turning every street corner, every step, into a perfect artistic frame without any staging. Chefchaouen is a surreal dream, while Ait Benhaddou is the embodiment of epic memories. Nestled in the middle of the arid Unila Valley is a reddish-brown terracotta complex that looks like an ancient fortress forgotten by time. Every structure here, from the defensive walls to the multi-story dwellings, is made from a mixture of clay and straw, shaped into tiered forms that rise along the hillside without the use of cement or modern materials. Today, it is considered one of the best preserved earthwork complexes in North Africa and has been a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1987. What makes Ait Benhaddou special is its integrity. The layout, the walls, the watchtowers, the narrow alleys all still reflect the architecture that has existed in this area for centuries. Stepping through the Ksar feels like stepping into a perfectly preserved version of ancient Morocco, untouched by modernization. Its authenticity is also why Ait Benhaddou has become one of the world's most frequently used natural film sets. Its silhouette has appeared in productions ranging from Gladiator to Game of Thrones to The Mummy. Few buildings in Morocco are as instantly recognizable as the Hassan II Mosque, which sits in a prime location on the Atlantic coast. It juts out into the sea, making it one of the largest sea-based mosques in the world. It has become the defining landmark of modern Morocco, not only for its scale, but for the craftsmanship embedded in every surface. Its minaret rises to nearly 700 feet and remains one of the tallest ever built. Inside, sections of the floor are fitted with glass panels, allowing worshippers to see the waves breaking directly beneath them. At night, a laser beam projected from the top of the minaret extends across the water, pointing toward Mecca. The building's details reflect the highest level of Moroccan artisan work: intricate Zeli tile mosaics, carved Atlas cedar ceilings, polished white marble columns, and monumental bronze doors, all produced by more than 6,000 craftsmen. Every geometric motif, every carved pattern, and every tiled surface is made by hand. Among Morocco's modern structures, the Hassan II Mosque stands out not for technology or scale alone, but for how convincingly it unites traditional craft with contemporary ambition. In the heart of Fez, there exists a world where time seems to have stood still for more than 1,200 years. The Medina Fez el-Bali is not only the largest Medina in Morocco, but also the largest surviving medieval labyrinth on Earth. It is the largest car-free urban area in the world, built from more than 9,000 alleyways that twist, fold, narrow, and intersect like a living labyrinth. There are no straight lines here, no open roads, and no vehicles, only donkeys carrying goods, metalworkers shaping brass in small workshops. The smell of spices drifting through passageways, and the call to prayer echoing between walls barely wide enough for one person to pass. Google Maps is completely useless here, and even frequent visitors can get lost in minutes. Many of the alleys are as narrow as a donkey's back, and entire sections are only familiar to residents who grew up in this maze. It's one of the closest experiences to the 11th century that still exists in the world. Inside the Medina stands another historic landmark, Quaraouiyine University, founded in 859 and recognized by Guinness World Records as the oldest continuously operating university in the world. It was established by Fatima al-Fihri, a highly educated woman of Tunisian origin who used her entire inheritance to create an institution accessible to learners of all backgrounds. The Al-Quaraouiyine Mosque forms the core of the complex, a historic structure that has expanded over centuries and remains one of the most important religious and scholarly institutions in Morocco. Its library is among the oldest on Earth, housing priceless manuscripts, including a 9th century Quran written in gold ink, rare medieval works on astronomy, and early texts on medicine, geography, and history, preserved in controlled conditions to this day. It served simultaneously as a mosque, a university, and a community hub, an architectural layout that reflects how education and faith were once inseparable in the Islamic world. With its back to Africa but its eyes towards Europe, Tangier is the only city where two continents see each other across only a narrow strip of water. From its coastline, Spain is visible on clear days, making the city feel less like a border and more like a crossroads. Just outside the city lies Cap Spartel, the westernmost tip of North Africa. Standing there, the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea meet in a visible shift of color and current, one of the most striking natural boundaries on the continent. The Spartel Lighthouse, perched above the headland since the 19th century, marks this transition point where two vast bodies of water converge. Further along the coast is one of Tangier's most famous landmarks, the Hercules Cave. The opening of the cave resembles the outline of the African continent in reverse, a shape that has become iconic. According to legend, this cave was the resting place of the demigod Hercules before performing his 11th labor, covering the cliffs in a veil of epic mystery. From the dark heart of the cave, the view through the window of Africa opens up to the endless blue of the Atlantic Ocean, creating a silhouette between rock and water. Within the city stands another significant landmark, the Grand Mosque of Tangier. Originally a Portuguese church during the colonial period, when Morocco regained control of Tangier in the late 17th century. The building was converted into a mosque and gradually expanded over the centuries. Today, it reflects a distinctive blend of Moroccan and Andalusian architectural heritage, seen in its white and green square minaret, its finely detailed zelly archways, the traditional tiled courtyard, and the geometric motifs common across North Africa. The green tiled roof, a signature feature of major Moroccan mosques, completes the building's identity and anchors it firmly within the country's architectural tradition. In the 20th century, Tangier became something else entirely, an international zone. It attracted diplomats, writers, artists, and spies, all drawn by the city's unique legal status and cosmopolitan atmosphere. That legacy still lingers in its architecture and its blend of European and North African influences. Only about 20 miles apart, Meknes and Volubilis feel like two different eras placed side by side. One represents Morocco's imperial age, the other its ancient Roman past. They give the region a historical depth rarely found elsewhere in North Africa. Meknes was once a royal capital, often compared to a Moroccan version of Versailles, for its vast fortified walls, monumental gates, and grand urban design. One of its most defining structures is Bab Mansour, the city's principal gate, known for its large-scale, finely detailed zelig tile work. And stone columns brought from the ruins of Volubilis. Its craftsmanship and proportions give a clear sense of the authority Meknes projected during its imperial height. Another highlight of the city is the mausoleum of Moulay Ismail, the final resting place of one of Morocco's most influential kings. His reign shaped much of the country's early modern identity, and the mausoleum reflects the scale and ambition of the period. Volubilis, on the other hand, tells a completely different story. It is the largest and best preserved Roman archaeological site in Morocco, founded in the 3rd century BCE and thriving during the reign of Emperor Caracalla. The ruins still display clear traces of Roman urban planning: the triumphal arch of Caracalla, the Capitoline Temple, the Roman Basilica, and a collection of remarkably preserved mosaic floors that have survived 2 millennia. The columns and archways stand isolated against open fields, giving the site an atmosphere that feels both historic and unexpectedly quiet. Meknes reflects the ambitions of Morocco's early modern monarchy, while Volubilis retains traces of its Roman past. Their presence on the same stretch of land brings the historical boundary to life, fully exposing Morocco's multi-layered cultural flow. Set across the slopes of 2 hills, Moulay Idriss Zerhoun holds a uniquely important place in Moroccan history. It is the burial site of Moulay Idriss I, founder of the Idrissid dynasty, and the figure widely regarded as the father of the first Moroccan state. For centuries, the town carried a special religious status. Non-Muslims were not permitted to stay overnight, a restriction that remained in effect until the mid-20th century. The town is covered with rows of whitewashed houses stretching up the hillsides, connected by narrow, winding streets and small staircases. The green and white domes dot the landscape, giving the settlement a distinct visual identity, especially when viewed from the surrounding mountain ranges. At its center stands the mausoleum of Moulay Idriss I, the spiritual and architectural heart of the community. The structure features a jade-green dome, traditional tiled courtyards, and design elements rooted in classical Moroccan, Andalusian aesthetics. Access to the interior is limited, and entry for non-Muslims is not always permitted, preserving the sacred nature of the site. Moulay Idriss Zerhoun is both a pilgrimage town and a living historical landmark, one that connects modern Morocco directly back to its earliest origins. The claustrophobic feeling of the narrow alleys immediately disappears upon arriving in Rabat. The space here is airy, with wide avenues lined with palm trees and a cool, salty breeze blowing directly from the Atlantic Ocean into the city. As the nation's capital, it integrates governmental and historic areas with a degree of clarity and organization not typically seen in other Moroccan cities. One of its most emblematic landmarks is the Hassan Tower, an unfinished 12th century minaret that was intended to be the tallest in the world. Construction stopped after the death of Sultan Yaqub al-Mansur, leaving behind a striking ensemble of the half-built tower and more than 200 incomplete stone columns surrounding it. The tower itself stands close to 140 feet tall, only a fraction of its intended height, but the scale of its base reveals how ambitious the original plan was. Unlike most minarets, Hassan Tower was designed with interior ramps instead of stairs, wide enough for a rider on horseback to ascend to the top. The structure displays the sophistication of Almohad art. Its red sandstone walls are engraved with geometric motifs, Kufic inscriptions, and decorative arches that reflect the architectural language seen in the Quaraouiyine Mosque in Marrakech and the Giralda Tower in Seville. Nearby stands the mausoleum of Mohammed V, one of the finest examples of modern Moroccan craftsmanship. Mohammed V, the king who guided Morocco out of French colonial rule, is buried here along with his sons. The mausoleum features an elegant palette of white, green, and gold, with carved cedar ceilings, intricate Zeli tile work, marble domes, and sharply detailed mosaic floors. The central tomb, sculpted from white marble, sits beneath a high ceiling that filters warm light across the ornamented surfaces. Facing the Atlantic is the Kasbah of the Udayas, a fortified quarter distinguished by its white and blue houses, narrow alleys, and Mediterranean Andalusian influences. Perched above the mouth of the Bou Regreg River, the Kasbah offers views of both the beach and the estuary, providing one of the most serene outlooks in the capital. Rabat may be the political center of Morocco, but the city's character comes from the balance it maintains between old and new, tradition and modern architecture, sea and city. At this moment, as you and I enter Marrakech, sounds, colors, and scents come all at once, as if the city is opening a secret door only for those who dare to get lost in its labyrinth. Marrakech, Morocco's fourth largest city, is often described as the country's most sensory destination, a place where history, sound, color, and architecture converge with an energy found nowhere else. Its reddish walls and buildings made from the clay of the Haouz Plain give the city its enduring nickname, the Red City. At its core is Jamaa el-Fnaa, the most famous square in North Africa, and a cultural stage that has operated continuously since the 11th century. This place brings together all the most typical things of Morocco, such as traveling storytellers, traditional healers, street artists, and smoky food markets. This strong vitality has turned the square into a precious living heritage recognized by UNESCO as an intangible cultural heritage. Overlooking the square is the Quaraouiyine Mosque, the largest mosque in Marrakech and one of the finest examples of Almohad architecture. Its minaret, rising roughly 250 feet, served as the model for both the Giralda in Seville and the Hassan Tower in Rabat. As with most mosques in Morocco, entry to the interior is restricted to Muslims, but the exterior alone, especially at sunset, remains a defining image of the city. A short distance away, Jardin Majorelle offers a stark contrast to the city's intensity. This botanical garden, famous for its deep cobalt Majorelle blue, was restored and later owned by designer Yves Saint Laurent. Filled with palms, bamboo, cacti, and reflecting pools, it remains one of the most tranquil spaces in Marrakech. The city also preserves some of the most refined royal architecture in Morocco. The Bahia Palace, with its 150 rooms, carved cedar ceilings, painted wooden beams, Andalusian courtyards, and detailed Zeli tile work, is a showcase of 19th century craftsmanship. The layout is designed to create a sense of progression, leading visitors from quiet inner rooms to open, sun-drenched courtyards. Even at its most lavish, the palace reflects the builder's intentions, projecting power through the meticulous craftsmanship of every surface. Not far from the Bahia Palace is the el-Bali Palace, now largely abandoned but once considered one of the most lavish structures ever built in North Africa. Commissioned by Sultan Ahmad al-Mansur to celebrate his victory at the Battle of Wadi al-Makazin, the palace was designed to showcase the full extent of Saadian wealth and power. Often described as the Versailles of North Africa, it originally comprised 360 rooms, a vast plaza-like courtyard, 4 sunken gardens, and 4 vast reflecting pools. The palace was once decorated with Italian Carrara marble, Atlas cedar, gold, onyx, and exquisite Zelig mosaics, materials sourced from across the Mediterranean and beyond. Today, only the massive walls, turrets, and courtyards remain, giving the place a cold, empty feel. Nearby lie the Saadian tombs, rediscovered and restored in 1917, known for their Carrara marble decoration and precise ornamental detail. The complex contains the remains of more than 60 members of the Saadian dynasty, arranged in chambers that were sealed for centuries and remained untouched until their rediscovery. The most celebrated space, the Hall of 12 Columns, features a domed cedar ceiling, marble pillars, and finely carved stucco that illustrates the height of 16th century craftsmanship. Finally, the Ben Youssef Madrasa, once the largest Islamic school in the Maghreb, displays an extraordinary courtyard lined with Zeli mosaics and stucco carvings. It stands as one of Marrakech's most important educational and architectural landmarks. Marrakech is a city that doesn't simply preserve history, it performs it in real time. Positioned at the edge of the High Atlas and facing the vast expanse of the Sahara, Ouarzazate has long been known as the gateway to the desert. The landscape shifts quickly here, from mountain foothills to palm groves to open, sun-baked plains, creating a setting that feels both remote and cinematic. One of the city's most distinctive landmarks is Kasbah Taourirt, a towering earthen fortress that once controlled the caravan routes in the region. Built entirely from rammed earth and straw, the Kasbah contains a maze of rooms, stairways, and interconnected corridors. Its walls shift from gold to deep red depending on the light, and its scale makes it one of the largest and best-preserved Kasbahs in Morocco. Just outside the city lies Atlas Studios, the largest film studio in the world by land area. For decades, it has served as a production hub for films and series requiring desert landscapes, ancient cities, or Middle Eastern settings. Sets for major international productions still dot the campus, from pharaonic temples to medieval fortresses. The combination of open terrain, stable weather, and transformable architecture has led to Ouarzazate being dubbed the Hollywood of Africa. From an ancient caravan stop to a modern cinema capital, Ouarzazate has proven itself to be the perfect land for any story, be it historical or fictional. At the eastern edge of Morocco, the village of Merzouga sits at the foot of Erg Chebbi, the country's most iconic dune system. The settlement itself feels like a threshold to the Sahara, quiet and surrounded by an ever-shifting landscape of deep orange sand. Days begin with soft winds shaping the crests of the dunes, and nights fall under skies so clear that the Milky Way stretches across the horizon without interruption. Each step of the camel caravan leaves its mark on the golden sand dunes, slowly conquering the hilltops that constantly change color under the sun. It is a quiet rhythm of the desert, where the silhouette of this resilient animal blends with the harsh beauty of nature, creating a vivid and iconic film. But Merzouga is not only known for towering dunes and camel caravans, it is also home to one of the Sahara's rarest natural events, flooded sand dunes. After unusually heavy winter rains, parts of the desert around Merzouga transform into shallow lakes. The dry basins between the dunes fill with reflective water, turning the landscape into a mirror-like surface where orange sand meets the sky in perfect symmetry. For a brief moment, the Sahara appears reversed, dunes rising above still pools of water that shouldn't exist in a desert of this scale. In that rare moment of intersection, the Sahara is no longer a dead land. It becomes a masterpiece of natural arrangement, coexisting in one frame, creating a beautiful paradox that challenges all preconceptions about the Sahara. We end our journey in Essaouira. Here, before your eyes can take in the majesty of the sea, your body is immediately invaded by strong winds that blow straight to your skin. The steady breezes and the sound of the ocean echoing through the streets give Essaouira a different rhythm than any other coastal town in Morocco. Along the waterfront stands Scala de la Ville, a fortified sea wall built by the Portuguese and later expanded under Moroccan rule. Its stone bastions face directly toward the Atlantic, lined with bronze cannons that once guarded the city's trading routes. Waves crash against the base of the wall's cinematic presence, one that helped earn it a role as Astapor in Game of Thrones. Below the walls, the blue fishing port is the living heart of Essaouira. Dozens of wooden boats painted in the city's signature deep blue rest side by side, while fishermen unload the day's catch directly onto the docks. Vendors grill seafood on open fires, and hundreds of seagulls circle above, drawn to the activity and the scent of the ocean. Essaouira has also become a center for Morocco's artistic life. The city's relaxed atmosphere and steady light have attracted painters, musicians, and writers for decades. It is one of the cultural homes of Gnawa music, and each year the city hosts the internationally known Gnawa World Music Festival, drawing performers and visitors from around the globe. Where the wind carves the rocks and the sound of the waves blends with the music, Essaouira emerges as a beautiful, vibrant, and free-spirited resonance. At the end of the journey, what remains is a taste of light and color. From the dreamy green of the north to the fiery yellow of the south, Morocco is like a great mosaic created by the harshness of nature and the generous spirit of the people.